What up, Panther Nation? It is your main man, Joey Riolano, also known as the freaking Puerto Rican, live and in full effect tonight from Charleston, South Carolina. I'm here with the whole Cat Chronicles crew, plus a few extras this fine evening. We've got Aaron Ford. What's up, Aaron? Also known as Mel Mayock. Say hello, Aaron.
Hey, Panther Nation. How you doing tonight? We got some good conversations going on. We've got a couple different writers coming in to give different perspectives. It's a topic that's burning in Charlotte for the last couple years, so let's have fun tonight.
I'm looking forward to it for sure. And the man behind the control board, as usual, touchdown Tony Dunn, a.k.a. the Professor.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the C3 podcast. We are going to be talking about Cam Newton and Andrew Luck tonight. I've been stewing over this for the last couple of days and all the media hype. So thanks to everybody for listening to the CarolinaCatChronicles.com podcast. And let's go ahead and introduce our guests.
All right. First up, we have Jake Arthur from the Indy Sports Report and ProFootballSpot.com. Jake, say hello.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
All right. And the second guest we have is Rick McGlothlin. He is with DraftTech.com. Aaron and him have a relationship, and he was nice enough to join us on the show tonight. Rick, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. It's nice to join Panther Nation, and hope to have a real good time on the show.
I think that's the plan, Rick. I think we're really going to enjoy this. Yeah. All right. I'm going to throw it to you, Tony. You want to get us kicked off?
Yeah. What we're just trying to do is you guys have probably seen it, is that recently the NFL Top 100 2014 came out. Cam Newton was number 24. Andrew Luck, number 30. And there has been a lot of discussion in the national media about this, and it seems like the blowback has all been positive for Andrew Luck, and like this was kind of some sort of, I guess, shiesty rig. But it is a player's poll. But here, I just want to play you guys something and see what you think about this statement right here.
Right now, I'm going to say Cam Newton will be better than Andrew Luck. If Andrew Luck had gone into the 2010 draft, as most people expected with Cam Newton, Andrew Luck would be playing for the Carolina Panthers right now. Just about every single one of us would have taken Andrew Luck over him because of the preparedness that he has to run an offense. And that preparedness is more important in a lot of ways than the physical gifts that Cam Newton has. But I just saw Cam Newton go through and absolutely revamp everything about the Carolina Panthers franchise.
So that was a statement made by Bomani Jones last year. I guess it would be going into Andrew Luck's rookie season. And the typical kind of discussion has been that Andrew Luck is a more pro-ready quarterback, that he is a more pure guy. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead, Rick. You start us off.
Well, I think, first of all, the disparity in preparation probably on the part of Andrew Luck is what a lot of people look at to begin with. Of course, Cam Newton didn't play 4 years at Auburn, kind of jumped around a little bit there before he finally broke through in Auburn. Andrew Luck had that stellar career at Stanford all 4 years, decided to remain for his senior year. So I think just coming out, he was basically groomed to be a quarterback. His father, of course, was a quarterback. I just think that based on a pro-style offense, he had more experience and more knowledge of that part of the game. But you can't discredit the amount of talent and the amount of athletic ability, determination, and perseverance that Cam Newton has shown both in college but also in the pro game as well. So, I think both are fine quarterbacks, and I think both are going to lead their teams respectively to the playoffs eventually. I think Cam has done quite well. Luck has had a weaker offensive line, in my opinion, and not quite as good a defense from year to year, although last year was better. I think you're going to see a lot from both quarterbacks in the coming years, no matter whether they're ranked 24th and 30th this year or 15th and 10th next year.
Let me go ahead, because that was a great answer, first of all, and it was very polite. And
Yes, it was.
and even keel. So tell me straight up, do you think that he should have been ranked higher than Cam Newton in this poll?
I don't know. The players ranked him. I don't know any of the intricacies of how the NFL Network goes through and takes those ratings from the players and figures them up. I noticed on a lot of the outtakes, though, on the video, that the players are given a clipboard with a blank list, and they're sitting there writing them down 1 through 100. And I don't know about you guys. I don't think I could come up with 100 guys in 10 or 15 minutes and write all their names down from 1 to 100 in the order I think they should be. So I kind of scratch my head when I see that.
That's an excellent point. Is that really how they run the poll?
I have no idea.
I can't imagine that.
1 through 20, and then they take the top 100 averages out of it.
Exactly. That's right.
That's crazy, first of all. But, okay, well, still, what do you think, Mel Mayock? Because he didn't come out and say it, but he did want to say that he thinks that he probably, in theory, should be rated higher. Come on, am I just pulling it out of you, Rick, or is that?
Say again now.
If you were voting, how about this? If you were voting.
Oh, between the two?
Yeah, who would you have done? Only on the 2014 season, because that's what the rating was, right? Top 100 players of the 2014 season.
Right.
What would you have voted? Who would you have put ahead of who?
I would have put Luck ahead of Newton.
That's a smart answer, though, because your fans would be upset if you went the other way.
That's a personal opinion. That's because I've seen what he's had to work with on the offensive line. That thing's a sieve. Has been for a couple years. It was even worse last year. I think Cam has a better running game. Of course, Stewart was hurt for a bit, but he still has a better running game. I think his defense was better last year, especially at sacking the quarterback. Even though we had Robert Mathis, who led the league in sacks, that was just one guy, and it was really the only guy with any kind of pass rush for the Colts. So, I would give the slight edge to Luck last year.
Okay. Joey, how do you feel about that?
The offensive line, I would have to agree with that. I think the offensive line for the Panthers was pretty bad last year because of the injuries that we had to deal with. We had some injuries to some key players, and I think really Cam Newton's elusiveness and athleticism get him out of a lot of sacks. I think had it been a mere mortal instead of Super Cam, that sack total for him would have been significantly higher. He's just able to, he's just a beast. He really is. Offensive lines for both teams weren't the greatest last year. We can definitely say that. I think the receiving core for the Colts was a bit better last year. And the defense, hands down, the Panthers had a better defense. But, I think Cam Newton, because of his physical prowess, is frankly just better than Luck. Luck made,
nice.
That's just, again, this is a personal opinion, but just if I had to start a franchise and pick between one of the two, knowing what I know now, I certainly would pick Cam Newton.
All right, that's an interesting point, because a lot of people have been talking about this. Would you start a franchise? Who would you pick when you start a franchise?
Andrew Luck is, because if we're talking
about
a quarterback, I need somebody that's going to lead my team. And I think Andrew Luck, when I look at what he did coming in as a rookie, he inherited a 2-14 team, and then turned around with basically no run game, a banged-up offensive line, turned them around. They go 11-5 his first year. They make the playoffs, and that to me is what you want to leave. I really like Cam. I'm not trying to say anything bad about Cam.
You don't pick one of the two.
I would take Andrew Luck because of what he's done in his first 2 seasons in Indy. He threw the ball 1,200 times. So they're asking him to do a lot more in Indy than Cam is being asked to do.
I will make.
Jake, do you agree with what that kind of sentiment is, and that is there are some kind of other qualities that come along with Andrew Luck that make him a safer franchise kind of pick.
I think so. I mean, he's obviously, the NFL has two types of quarterbacks. You got your guys like Cam Newton, who are the ultra athletic type, and then you have, classic pocket guys like Andrew. But he's really not just a pocket guy. He's an extremely efficient runner, too. He's not going to blow the doors off with a 4.3 or 4.4 40 time, but almost every time he runs, he's picking up a first down, and he's got a close amount of rushing touchdowns for a quarterback that Cam does. He certainly doesn't have that number, but he's definitely above average. I think you've also got to look at the fourth quarter victories. He's won 22 regular season games, and half of those come from behind. That's kind of unbelievable. And that sound clip mentioned having to work with less. He did inherit a 2-14 team, and then it was blown up, and then looked something like an expansion team in the mix of those 2 years. And, even the people around here were expecting no more than 6 or 7 wins last year, or 2012, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And they just go right around and win 11 games and go to the playoffs. It's unbelievable. Just some of the things you see him do, they just make you scratch your head. Not necessarily just on the ground, but definitely with his arm, too.
Mel, how do you feel about that when you hear that kind of statement, 2-14 team that was blown up, as well as that clip we played discussing him doing more with less? His mic is muted. Your mic is muted, I believe, Aaron.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah.
A little easier when it's not muted. But now you got to give Andrew Luck credit. There's some stats that I think are just astounding when it comes to what he does. For example, last year Cam Newton was sacked 47 times. Andrew Luck was sacked 39 times. Out of those 39 sacks, 0, and this is according to Monday Morning Quarterback, 0 of those sacks were Andrew Luck's fault. They were either the scheme's fault or the line's fault. It was not that he held on to the ball too long or anything of that nature. The guy just doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. That's his upside. Where I really prefer Cam Newton is the guy is just an absolute playmaker with his feet. When the line breaks down, he's gone, right? And he had 57 designed runs last year compared to Andrew Luck's 2. That's not Andrew Luck's fault. That's the design of the offense, right? So the combine stats were pretty much the same. They're about the same athletically. They're just used differently. And Cam has really shown that when the play breaks down, he can make something of it. Andrew's quite the quarterback too. But truth be told, the reason I take Cam is because Andrew Luck spurned Charlotte a couple of years ago, decided to go back to school. So it's kind of like that hot girlfriend you had in high school that dumped you, and you got a grudge against her. But
it's finally come out, guys. The truth is out. It's very simple. Why? I asked Jake before we got started, is this even a discussion among Colts fans? Like, are they out there clamoring over, well, we should have been ahead of Cam Newton. I've heard that more from the national media more than I have from Colts fans. But this is where the rub comes from us, and you can say we are being sensitive, and I'll admit to that. But Andrew Luck did intentionally avoid the Carolina Panthers. And I don't believe this mess that his parents were rich, that he loved Stanford and he wanted to play for a national championship at a school that really isn't going to win a national championship. And he loves architectural management and interior design so much that he forwent the #1 pick in the NFL draft. He was guaranteed the the Panthers wanted him, and he chose to go back to college. So do you guys think that we're being silly as fans of the Carolina Panthers for being a little sensitive on the subject of Cam Newton and Andrew Luck?
I think the term is bitter.
There you go. There you go. Jake, you go first.
No, not entirely. John Elway spurred the Colts. I mean, they were still Baltimore at the time, but I think most people are around here are like, well, you know, if you don't want us, then forget you. But, you know, there's little reasons to do things like that. Like, a lot of people around here don't like Robert Griffin III because, believe it or not, Andrew really did not get as much respect as he deserved in year one because of how flashy and awesome of a year RG3 had until the injury. Russell Wilson, too. Wilson had some good stats, obviously led an incredible team, and then, of course, sealed it up with the Super Bowl this year. So, you know, little petty stuff. It's easy to get tripped up on that. We certainly do it, too.
Rick, how do you feel? Are we being silly because just to say one more thing on that, Jay, he said yes. That one more. We don't like RG3 either, by the way, because
I don't think he should either.
He stole a lot of Cam's thunder as well in his rookie year because Cam Newton clearly had the best rookie season of. I think it's pretty clear that it was the best rookie season ever. Certainly for a quarterback. I guess what was Joe Montana? Not Montana. Dan Marino, was his first season terrible or great?
I was pretty good, I think.
They went to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I know his second season broke the touchdown record.
Okay, so Rick, tell us why we're being silly over this conversation because we are a little bitter that that the media so loves Andrew Luck.
I don't know that the media loves Andrew Luck as much as you think. Sometimes a lot of the folks in Indianapolis think he's a bit slighted as well by the national media. I don't think Andrew Luck stayed in school in order to spurn Carolina intentionally. I think of the two places he could have gone, Carolina or Indianapolis, the more pressure on him was going to Indianapolis because he's stepping into the shadows left there by number 18. So if you had your pick of the two places, following a legend or going to Carolina and starting your own legacy, I think of the two, that would have been the better pick if you're looking solely at not stepping into a pressure-packed situation.
Okay. Would you say that the Colts market, though, has got to be so much bigger than the Panthers market, or at least notably, they've had so much success with Peyton Manning. There's all the, there's more history and kind of a crazy history at that in some ways to the
Well, I think Jake would probably agree that before Peyton Manning, there wasn't that much of a market for football in Indianapolis.
Right. So, well, I guess the other thing that I don't know, what maybe bothers me some of this is this idea that Andrew Luck is already proven as a quarterback. I think he's made plenty of errors.
Sure.
I wouldn't say that he is. Some of the times those fourth quarter comebacks are because of his bonehead mistakes in the first half. I know he's had a lot of pressure by that line, but the clip I played talked about like blowing up this team and the expansion team, and that's what Cam Newton came into. Mm-hmm. We were 2-14 the season he came in. It was ugly with Marty Hurney. The coach was on the way out. We had a new coach coming in the same year. There was a lockout that year. So I think that I don't think we have to compare them. And this question is silly that the fact that we ask it, but it is kind of fun to ask.
Sure. You mentioned some new people going in and out for Carolina. Luck's had the same situation as well. He's had two head coaches in his first couple of years. He's had two offensive coordinators changed on him, and he's had, two rookie tight ends his first full season after his rookie year, and then he had a rookie a wide receiver in T.Y. Hilton last year. So, he's had some learning on the curve to do as well, and he's going to make mistakes. And I think he'd agree with you that he's made more than he wanted to, as far as that goes. But he's still pretty young, and Cam Newton, I think, is pretty young. He's not an aged veteran by any stretch of the imagination. So I think
just one more year.
Huh?
Just one more year on him.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're both still going to progress even further than they are now,
Sure.
which is a scary thought, believe it or not.
Right.
That it is. Hopefully, we'll be able to see them in the Super Bowl versus one
Sure.
another at some point in the future.
That would be
And I wanna-
the ultimate
I think
showdown.
that's very tangible.
I'd like to pose a question to Jake and to Rick. I know how I feel about it, but I'm biased, and I'm a homer. I won't deny it. There's no denying that. I think the Colts play in the AFC South. Is that right?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay. Is the AFC South as good or as tough as the NFC South, the division?
Not even close. But 2014 may be a different scenario. Gus Bradley, by all observations, is doing a rock solid job in Jacksonville. I don't think they're going to be the league's doormat anymore. I think Houston could have drafted a little differently and hit the ground running next year, but now I think they'll have some more growing to do. Tennessee, I honestly see Tennessee being probably about 6-10. The AFC South may be a little behind the NFC South still, but it's not going to be like it has been the last year or so, because the AFC South has been pretty bad.
In saying that,
Yeah.
would Cam have had more success than Luck if he played in the same type of offense he does in Carolina in Indianapolis? Can that be said?
I think he might have a little easier time on the ground, but I can't say that he'd have more success as a passer. And, it's hard to have more success than back-to-back 11-win playoff seasons. If we're talking by wins, I don't know that I can say he'd have a better time with it than Luck has had.
I know he'd probably be the leading rusher in the NFL because that offensive line to Indianapolis, that's all he would have been able to do because they just line up right now and wait for Andrew Luck to pass, and they blitz a lot, and nobody can stop the pass rush. So Andrew's already scrambling around when he does throw a pass, and a lot of the times he ends up running. So Cam probably would have gained quite a few yards behind that Indianapolis offensive line. And going back to the other question about the NFC South, definitely the top division in the league the last, 2-3 years probably. The NFC West has made great strides, even with St. Louis and being in that division as well. I would say that the AFC South is a lot better than it has been 2 years ago, but it's not quite as bad as everybody makes it out to be. I think the NFC East and the AFC East have been the two worst conferences in the NFL for quite some time. Buffalo, the Jets, Miami, they never really pose a challenge to New England at all, and it's a revolving door at the NFC East level year after year after year. So I think Jacksonville's coming on, as Jake alluded to, and I think Tennessee, last year, they were 7-9. They didn't lose. They lost a lot of games by close margins.
Yes, they did.
Of course, Indianapolis beat Seattle, San Francisco, and Denver. Tennessee was very close to they got trashed by San Francisco, but they're very close with Seattle. So Tennessee's not that bad a ball club. The AFC South in general isn't that bad. And remember, for 3 of the last 4 years, a lot of experts were picking Houston to be in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Well, okay. Houston has been the only team that's been any good there over the last couple of years. I mean, the Titans, no good. They haven't really been any better than like a 6 or 7 win team. I feel like just from the outside looking in, Jacksonville has just been an absolute mess entirely.
Last year they were dreadful, yes.
And, well, you could say it wasn't the year before as well, too, right?
Probably bad, yeah.
So I would say this is that the NFC has become the stronger conference in the last couple of years, in my opinion. Not so much, I guess. New England has just had a lot of time coming back, hard time being the power that they were after that Super Bowl against the Giants. So I think that does say something, is kind of a testament of what Cam has had to deal with. He has also faced, and I can tell you, I've been at those games, and it's been a putrid line as well in Carolina. It's been in shambles. We've had a lot of injuries. He's had zero weapons around him. I'm surprised in some ways that you guys think that Cam would get more yards on the ground significantly, because Andrew Luck is supposed to be an equivalent athlete, or at least that's what Mel Mayock was saying earlier. So, I mean, Cam is just so enormous. He's just a beast of a man. So I think that's helped, but he has had no help on the offense.
His running game has been better than the Colts, but even I think it was one of the top running games in the NFL last year. But even then, it was so inconsistent. The running game in Carolina has just not been what it was since, I guess it was 2009, when Stewart and Williams ran for 1,100 yards each.
Double trouble.
Yeah, we just it's been so inconsistent. One game it'll show up, and then it'll go away for 2 games, and then it'll show up. So he really, it's clear that the offense, the receivers haven't been there. But the run game has showed up just in spurts, and, Cam he does so much on his own. That's really where his value is. He really can put the team on his back and carry it. And Jake, I think earlier you alluded to some comeback wins for Luck, but this year Cam had some really big comeback wins, and I think we saw a lot of maturation and development as an NFL quarterback in Cam in this past season. We've seen some real growth, and I do expect that to continue going into this year.
For sure, yeah, and to the whole argument of Cam, I think, is 24 on the list, and Andrew is 30. I really doubt that's a huge discrepancy in votes, and I think you could flip-flop them. I think both of them will be 2 of the preeminent quarterbacks of the next 10 years. They're 2 different styles, mainly.
Totally.
I think Cam will have to probably evolve into more of a pocket passer later in his career as his body, isn't as sharp. But no, I think they're both really good at what they do, and I think a lot of the criticism both of them receive is a little unjust sometimes. But no, and something I want to touch on a little earlier was Andrew does make mistakes sometimes, for sure. He has a tendency to have a never say die attitude. And I think what caught my attention was that stat by Monday Morning Quarterback that none of the sacks were his fault. I don't see how that is possible at all. He does amazing things, but a couple times a game you're like, dude, you got to get rid of the ball already. Holds on to it way too long sometimes. And some of those got to be on him, even though the interior offensive line. I don't know how much stock you take in Pro Football Focus ratings, but I was looking into it. Hugh Thornton, Samson Satele, and Mike McGlynn those were the 3 main starters in the interior last year, and I believe all 3 of them were outside of the top 50 at their position, which is incredible for 3 starters.
You're right. For starters, that is incredible.
Yeah, so
I'd like to see if Chandler. I'd like to see if we had Nate Chandler that played for us last year. Right tackle, right, or right guard?
He played right guard last year. He's going to play left tackle this year.
Yeah. and he was a converted defensive end. So I would like to see or deep tackle or something like that. I'd like to see if he ranked higher in the top 50, if he broke the top 50. But
All
I guess
I know about the Pro Football Focus is if you looked on that chart, the Indianapolis interior offensive line, they were all blood red in terms of negative numbers.
Oh wow.
It was an enormous negative number for all three.
I think
Wow.
they beat the stats over the head a lot. Like they tried to say that Carolina had like the 12th best line in the league, and I just can't believe that. One other thing about our run game too is that that was a lot of Cam.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
He's our
mean,
lead rusher. Yeah.
so it's not like we have a run game. And he is a lot of that game. You know, he's at least 30% of it. So I don't know. I still think Luck spurned us on purpose. But let's go ahead and talk about the more important thing, because we had a podcast on this about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We were talking about the Kaepernick contract and how that's going to affect Cam Newton's contract, and we really have, in some ways, forgotten about Andrew Luck until this story came about, unless we just see him on the TV. But Kaepernick has been our evil nemesis among Panther fans because their style of play is so easily compared. Their build is alike. They're not white, so they cannot be pocket quarterbacks. Obviously, I'm telling you, there is this crazy subconscious thing that the media has that Cam has to be an athlete. He can't be a pocket quarterback, which I don't believe that at all. If he could just clean up his mechanics a little bit, he'd be wonderful. But we were talking about the Kaepernick contract and how that would affect Cam Newton's deal. I bet you guys haven't mentioned that one time when it came to Andrew Luck among Indianapolis Colts fans.
Oh, we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, as soon as
okay.
as soon as that contract, it
What are your
was
thoughts on that?
the race between Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck, and who would be getting that, $115 million contract. And with the Colts, Irsay will not be afraid to pull that at all. He and Ryan Grigson are not afraid to pay for what they want. And one thing they will not allow to happen is for Andrew Luck to leave. So whatever he wants is what he's going to get, and I would not be surprised to see Luck be the highest paid player of all time when his contract comes.
Okay.
Cow.
Wow. All right, because that was what we were going to get to in 1 second. But, Rick, I want to ask you this, because one thing, though, you guys have probably been focused on that top number, that $121 or $119 million number that he could get, and the supposed 61 guaranteed that was misreported in some ways. It's a lot of funny money. There's a lot of stipulations in the contract. What I don't think is this, when I say you guys aren't even talking about that, would Andrew Luck ever even think of a contract like that, Rick?
Would he think of it?
Would he think of a contract where essentially he had to play year to year in a fancy manner to get his money? Because a lot of people...
Would he sign a contract like that?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he's going to have to worry about that at all. Would he do it? I can't speak to whether he would or not, but would he be afraid of it if that was the only way he could sign a contract and play? I'm guessing he wouldn't be afraid of it. I'm just still in shock that Jay Cutler makes more money than Peyton Manning now, and Big Ben and Drew Brees. I mean, that's, 3 Super Bowl MVP quarterbacks, and the Bears just paid Cutler the highest because he's their only quarterback. So
Right.
I'm still in shock over that. But Cam and Andrew are going to get their money, and they deserve it. And
I want to ask you guys this: do you think that is the direction of where NFL contracts are going to be going? Because essentially, to me, it seems like Kaepernick's contract is a pay-for-play contract.
Oh, it's terrible. It's the worst deal ever.
And do you think that's the direction where the NFL's going, where they're gonna go more on a year-to-year deal where the team has the authority, depending on your performance the season before, to cut you, and you won't get.
If the Players Association continues to allow it, they've already allowed the rookie contracts to be forced down. So
Right.
it wouldn't surprise me that it trends that way if the NFLPA allows it.
Wow, that I think the rookie contract thing was good for the NFL.
I do too.
I don't think though that Andrew Luck would ever be offered a contract like Kaepernick was offered, where essentially it's a 2-year, $28 million deal, and all the other money is under all these other stipulations, and there's they can back how much they pay him down. I don't think Andrew Luck would ever be offered something like that. I don't think Cam Newton would ever take something like that. I can see him being kind of pigeonholed a little bit into you're this risky guy still because people quit. Because in many ways they question him as a leader, supposedly. Can he become a pocket quarterback? And what I feel, the one thing with Andrew Luck, I think they're pretty much on an even pace in their careers in success. I think I agree with you guys. You could flip them back and forth in that rating. But I think Andrew Luck has already been deemed kind of a foregone success, while Cam Newton is still a project. And so I think that those contracts, we're kind of interested to see this. And let me ask you, Mel, who gets paid more between Andrew Luck and Cam Newton? Because Jake went right after it, and spoiler alert, said he was the highest paid player in the league, going to be.
Well, if what they're saying is they're in Indianapolis, Irsay is going to pay whatever it takes to keep him and whatever he wants. I don't see how Cam is going to make more than that, because I think our new general manager is not in that same vein, right? I mean, he's a little more about saving the dollar and getting value. So I think they're both going to get paid over $100 million, and I think they're both going to get 55 to 60 million plus in guaranteed money. So neither one of these guys
deservedly so.
And deservedly so.
I agree. I think they've earned their pay totally.
Yep.
If Flacco is making as much as he is, then these guys deserve
Oh, for sure.
The fortunate thing is just what the picture of contracts in the NFL is becoming. If you've got a quarterback you think is at least good enough to keep, he automatically is $100 million man, and that's just not how it should be.
And that's something I wanted to ask you, Jake, was if they pay through the nose for Andrew Luck, that's going to eat up a lot of their money that they could use to put weapons around him, and if that's where I'm concerned. I think Cam Newton has somewhat stated he knows that if he takes all the money for himself, that's not going to leave a lot for him to have, for them to spread around to make up the rest of the team. And he's going to, it's great to be the highest paid player, but if you're the highest paid player on the worst team in the league, what good is that? Wouldn't you rather make a good bit of money and be in the playoffs and have a chance at a Super Bowl?
Absolutely. And I think most of us that pay attention to the Colts organization kind of assume that Andrew is not he's not going to be a money hog. Like Rick said, we can't speak for him, but one thing about Ryan Grigson is he does throw around a lot of money, but he structures contracts very well. They've already addressed, they know that, not only was Luck brought in 2012, but, so was T.Y. Hilton, Dwayne Allen, Kobe Fleener. They'll have a lot of contracts coming up. Jarrell Freeman on the defensive side of the ball. They know what's coming. They'll be able to structure. Not that they won't probably lose someone that they may want to hold on to, but that's just life in the NFL. But no, they're not going to – I don't think they'll do anything irresponsible with Luck's contract. It might look gaudy, but a lot of these contracts are more bark than bite, They look huge, but when you, kind of look through them, they're not as much money as you think tied into them.
Right. That's very true.
Yeah, but I think his contract will be pretty huge. That's how it's trending.
We all agree upon that point. If he doesn't, and that's why I think the Kaepernick deal was so terrible. They dealt their cards with Alex Smith. They let him go. They committed to Kaepernick so early. I just can't see them trying to start over after a guy's had that success. I'm surprised he didn't get more guaranteed money for a longer period of time. I see Cam Newton getting $54 million, maybe 58, because Mel Mayock, what's his agent's name again?
Bus Cook.
Bus Cook, who is the agent also for, you mentioned Jay Cutler. So, you know, he's not gonna let Cam not make his money. I think they both do deserve it. I think that they have played phenomenally. We love Cam Newton. That's part of our thing, is that like he has brought an excitement to Carolina that we don't know if has ever been there just because of one player before, or that kind of personality and all that he brings. We've had some good runs as an underdog team a lot of times, and we get excited, but he's our first superstar. So with that, I guess would be a question about your superstar who is now playing with the Broncos. We got to ask you about Peyton Manning. We got to ask, first of all, when Peyton Manning got smushed in the Super Bowl, were you guys secretly happy?
No.
No?
No.
Okay, tell us why, because you just love Peyton Manning so much still?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If there's no football game on in Indianapolis, first thing I'm looking for is Manning and Breeze. Breeze because he's a Purdue guy, but Manning because he's been a quarterback for Indianapolis and took us out of the dark ages of the NFL.
Okay.
Just call Panther Nation's attention.
What, Joey? You wanted to ask him about Irsay and Peyton Manning. Go ahead. Do you think it was handled poorly?
Right. Do you think that Irsay could have done a better job handling the whole Peyton Manning departure?
I think the aftermath that was last year and the build-up to the Colts-Broncos matchup, I thought that was handled awfully. You know, there was so much back and forth in the media, you know, people taking Irsay's words one way, whether he meant them or not, either way. I think a lot of times you would like to hear him share a little less. But leading up to the decision, I think it was okay, other than there was a slight war of words between the two for a very short time. But, I mean, they did what they could. There wasn't a lot of secrecy they could have with that. You know, it was the hottest topic in the NFL.
Right, for sure.
Leading up to it, I think they did well. Afterwards, not so much.
Rick, I want to ask you this, there doesn't seem to be a good way to handle that. It seems that no matter, you know, parting ways with the guy that made you, reminiscent of Joe Montana in San Francisco, reminiscent of something we just went through, not as much, not even, I wouldn't say as close, but Steve Smith, also kind of under this terminology, or the same kind of that feeling, these questions of loyalty. There doesn't seem to be a good way to handle it. Is this why Irsay popped pills later? Because he was still...
I think that was years in the making before that. But I will say this: I was against letting Peyton go at first. I mean, I was thinking with my heart, not with the pro football business mind. But I think if Andrew Luck was not in that draft, and it was only RG3, I think Irsay would have been forced and probably would have finally agreed to try and structure it to keep Manning there, because Luck was the only other choice, in my opinion. that allowed him to go ahead and release Peyton without trying to structure a new deal. It wouldn't have worked any way that you tried to make it look nice. It was just going to be bad no matter whether you cut him, whether you held a press conference, which he did. It was just going to be a bad situation for Colts fans no matter how you dress it up. You were losing your legend, and there was just no way around that.
Do you find it's kind of creepy that you brought in, like, Peyton Manning 2.0 with mobility? It seems so strange of circumstances that he almost like plugged and played the same formula.
Yeah.
And trying to replicate it again. Do you guys, is that something that secretly you guys cling to with like this feeling of security, that you're like, oh, we're familiar with this, we know? Because I'm wondering why wouldn't it, I mean, I think RG3 was more risky, but I think if he's healthy, he's pretty awesome. So do you think that made it easier or harder that you guys were plugging and playing somebody that was so similar in the way they present themselves, the way they tackle the game? We didn't have that. You know, our guy we like him and we like all his antics a little bit, but he took a little while to mature into the league.
Yeah, we went from Jimmy Clausen. We went from Jimmy Clausen to Cam Newton.
Yeah, we went from one guy that was scared of everything to one guy that just had a little bad press conference. But do you guys, did that make it easier for you, or was it weird?
Jake, I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, honestly, I was comfortable with the whole Peyton departure, knowing Luck was going to be who was filling in. If it would have been such, something that was unknown, then I probably would have hated that Peyton left. But like Rick said, he might not have even been shown the door if Luck wasn't in that draft.
Right.
But no, we're very spoiled and we're very lucky, and we know that. But yeah, it is a little creepy. I've even I was flipping through some sports conspiracy theories not too long ago, and that was one of them, was the Colts 2011 season. That was kind of funny. But no, it's a weird situation, but that it definitely does ease the tension knowing we were going from, Peyton of old to the new Peyton. And what it boiled down to for me was, do you want maybe 5 more years of Peyton at the end of his career, or do you want the next Peyton at the beginning of his career for the next 15 years? And that's what made it an easy decision for me.
Is Irsay married?
Married?
Yeah, the owner. Is he married?
He's divorced.
He's divorced, yeah.
Recently divorced. I wonder if he was worried about good-looking men, and so he just went after the ugliest ones. Because poor Andrew Luck. I think poor Andrew Luck has been in a Geico commercial before as a caveman.
Qualities when he doesn't shave the beard.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that you guys brought him in and you felt comfortable because you all knew your wives were safe, except that he's a millionaire.
And my wife thinks he's cute because he's so dorky. So.
I will say if Irsay let Manning walk and the team went 1-15 and 2-14 back to back with whoever the quarterback was that was brought in, they would have burnt the oil stadium down to the ground immediately.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be the owner.
Okay, let me say, I think Irsay did the right thing. I think Peyton had run his course, just like I think Gettleman did the right thing with Steve Smith. Steve Smith is my favorite Panther player of all time, but I think Steve Smith had run his course in Carolina. We needed new people to come in and take over as leaders of the team, and with Steve Smith here, that wasn't going to happen. And I think with Andrew Luck coming out, no matter who was coming out, he was the #1 pick. There was no doubt about it. And Jake, to touch on your point that you made a minute ago, I am one to feel that the Colts tanked in 2011 to get the #1 pick
No.
because they knew, because that was the year Peyton had to take off because of the neck injury the year before. Is that right?
Yeah, 2011 when they went 2-14 was when Peyton was gone the whole time.
Yeah, they
Right.
totally. Well, actually, that just shows you how awesome Peyton is. Is that like he just won by himself out there, like Cam Newton does each week. I think that it was an excellent move by the Colts to go after Andrew Luck. We all forget that Peyton Manning went to, I guess, wherever he went to, some crazy test facility and had some strange neck surgery that he has to. I mean, it's ridiculous what he came back from. I mean, I don't know. I would have never paid a guy with that type of risk involved. I think at that point, when you have a serious injury, it makes it an easy kind of issue. It's crazy that he's done so well in Denver, and I can see why you guys cheer for him. Do you guys like Irsay as an owner?
I do.
Yeah.
I think he's great. I think Jake said earlier that he probably is a bit too public with too many things. But the things that he does behind the scenes, he gives away so much money. Charitable organization, charitable work is to be commended. He has his personal demons, like many do, but I think overall, I think he's been good for the Indianapolis Colts. I'll say that.
He's fun to follow on Twitter.
Yes.
That's for sure. And I wanna ask one question. Do you think he should be held to the same standard as players regarding legal issues like the matter he had with getting arrested and DUI, that sort of thing? Should owners be held to the same?
I think so. If not a little bit of a higher standard, maybe. But
exactly.
one thing I think that's missing is, there's been a lot of criticism with, why hasn't the league come down on Irsay yet? I think a big thing with that is he immediately went into an inpatient rehab facility. I think that goes a long way. You don't see a lot of the player, not that they can in season sometimes, but a lot of the players, don't have the chance to immediately check right into something. But I think that's going to go a long way towards his discipline. Is that he's already taken personal measures to help himself. But being a repeat offender, I think he is especially held to a higher standard, having already been on that slippery slope.
Right.
Mel,
and being an owner, I couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Tony.
I think the owners got to be held to a higher standard. I mean, because they make so much more money than everybody else. They own it. I don't think, though, what he did was all that bad. I mean, I know it sucks. I mean, you shouldn't be doing that when you're rich. You shouldn't be doing any of that. Like, don't get in the car. But I think they almost kind of just made it's a dog and what is it, a dog and pony show? Is that the saying?
He was a target. He was a really target.
They ain't gonna do nothing to him. They're not gonna do a dang thing to him, and they make a dog and a pony show out of players because they like to put on the persona that they care about the mystique of the shield and things like that.
The shield, right.
But
Protecting the shield.
yeah, that's bull. Is that they only do that for the PR. But I want to get Mel in here because I know he wants to ask you guys some questions about the Colts draft this year. And I'll set you up with this thought, Mel, is that Andrew Luck is going to be going into his third season with a team that had some remarkable similarities. Poor offensive line, second season, also a 2-14 rookie. So they came into a bad situation, tough situation. Both Cam and Andrew Luck have faced these similar challenges, and there's a real roster deficiencies with both teams in their second year. What do you want to ask them about the draft with that in the back of your mind?
Well, I think that's a great point. I think there are some real similarities in the Colts and the Panthers, and quite honestly, I wish the Colts a lot of luck this year. Pun intended. I would love to see you guys in the Super Bowl come February. I think that would be awesome. But hey, I know we're running out of time. I would love to hear my fellow draft tech analyst, Rick, answer the question about the draft, because the way I interpret it is the Colts are trying to get a little bit more hard-nosed, a little bit tougher along the trenches, along the line, to be a little bit more physical. And I'd love to hear Rick's thoughts on that.
Well, I think it was only okay, and as far as the trenches, there's a potential for some of the undrafted free agents all over the roster to make more of an impact. The drafting of the offensive lineman Jack Mework from Ohio State, I think the principle behind it is good because he's a versatile lineman. He can play any position along the lines, and he's a good fundamental technician. But his size and the power is a question mark, and so if he can overcome that, then it's going to be a good pick. But it was questioned by a lot of experts, myself included. We were like, what? Jack Mework? But we'll see. The jury's out until we actually see him play against the NFL level lineman he's going to go up against. He's going to be tough.
Yeah, and actually, Panther Nation, we had a Don't Mock the Draft decided competition going throughout the draft where we let Panther Nation actually vote on who we wanted, and Panther Nation said they wanted Jack Mework in the second round.
They did or did not?
That we did. He was a target. Yeah, he's a very tough-nosed lineman. So I think you're going to like what you see there.
What did Jake? What did you think about the draft overall? Do you kind of second that sentiment? This kind of it was just okay from Rick.
Yeah, I'd say it was probably okay. This year was easily the most energy I'd poured into draft preparation. And so, with the exception of Dante Moncrief, seeing those names keep going off the board and the players we could have had, it was a head scratcher. I'm warming up to the Mework pick.
What round was that?
That was round 2. That was our first selection.
We only had 5 picks starting the second round.
Yeah, it's shaping up to where he may not even start at all this year unless there's an injury. Moncrief will.
And that was from the trade with Cleveland for Trent Richardson.
Cleveland, yeah.
Yeah. I love the Moncrief pick, especially for 90. I think that was a great value.
Right.
But Andrew Jackson and Jonathan Newsom, kind of questionable. You still had pass rushers like Jackson Jeffcoat on the board. And taking Ulrich John in round 7, there's still Dion Bailey on the board when you have a need at safety. I thought that was at least worth a flyer for a guy who could have gone in round 3 or 4.
Yep.
But, I mean, like Rick said, the jury's out until they're actually on the field. Most of our rookies seem to be doing well, especially some of the undrafted guys. I'm really excited to see some of those. See if some of them can make the roster and what they can do.
Rick, you were saying, can you really have anything but an okay draft when you don't have a first-round pick? I know you followed the draft very closely through DraftTech.com. Mm-hmm. Can you really? What do you do at that point when you don't pick forever and your offensive line is terrible? Do you just say we're just going to make Andrew Luck run around like a crazy person again, or do you? That's that's not a BPA strategy. That's a positional deficiency. Does that upset you? Would you just have rather have been somebody else?
Well, I think like Jake had said, there was a couple of players there that you kind of might have wanted, but there's a philosophy behind what Grigson is doing. I'm going to defer to his philosophy, and he's the guy in charge. I by the way, did like the Andrew Jackson linebacker pick. I think he's going to be a standout for the Colts. I was kind of concerned and curious as to why the center position really wasn't targeted more, both in free agency and in the draft. I know it wasn't as deep after the second round as probably was preferred by the personnel department, so that may have been the main reason. But I thought that there was a couple of picks in there that might have gone a little differently. But overall, he may be looking at solidifying depth versus getting immediate starters this particular year. I don't know that to be a fact. I don't know that might be the right way or not the right way, but there's a certain point where you have to have depth at these positions because injuries have really been key, especially in the last 3 years for the Colts and all teams for that matter. So maybe he was looking at more of a versatility factor and a depth factor than he was about being an immediate starter, especially in the later rounds 3 through 7.
I think that's all you can do when you don't have a first-round pick because everybody in the second round, sure, you're gunning for a guy that is going to be an impact player in the second round. That's wonderful when it happens, but nobody, that's just so rare in some, in most instances. Now, yeah, a second-round pick can get on the field and be productive, and you can be happy with them, but it's not like they're just going to be coming in pro-ready, or else they would have been a first-round pick. So I think that's where I think when you don't have a first-round pick, you're going to feel like that. You might have to go with that strategy because it's almost safer.
I tell you, the guy that I'm really interested and excited about is the cornerback who went as an undrafted free agent, and that's the kid from Florida, Purfoy. He might end up being a starter for the Colts when all is said and done. So I'll be interested to be at training camp in a few weeks to see how he does, see if he can move up and take a spot in the starting place of one of the current cornerbacks opposite of Vontae Davis.
He's going to have to hit the weight room.
Free agent signing for us too was Purifoy.
Yeah. If he can hit the weight room, get a little bit stronger. I mean, the guy had 6 reps at the combine.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
That's just embarrassing. All those dudes were laughing at him when he only pushed that 6 times. I'm sorry. They were. That's like, people joke on Morris Claiborne for his Wonderlic score. Right. I would. I mean, so I would just be like, come on, man. I mean, so, in fact, it was until that Purifoy had been early on when nobody knew what was going to happen. He was ranked rather high among cornerbacks, so he just fell. So he will, if he hits the weight room, he can be a big impact. Joe, you got any kind of last? How about this? Let me ask Rick and Jake. You guys got any last things you'd like to talk about before we go? We just got a couple more minutes.
We had been talking about Pro Football Spot earlier before the show started. We're starting this Mount Rushmore series of each team's for Mount Rushmore, and we got it kicked off on Monday with Anthony Rizzuti and the Panthers. So if you guys go by profootballspot.com, you guys and the rest of your Panthers fans can check out what your Mount Rushmore is.
Oh, we watched it. We saw it. We follow all of that.
How'd you feel about that?
Joe, you want to go first?
Not the Rushmore that I would have picked. I believe Peppers was on there, if memory serves, and
so was Cam Newton. So was Steve Smith.
Yeah, Cam Newton too young to be on there right now. Sure, he's a dynamic player and a superstar, but he's still got to get us to the promised land. Steve Smith, I could see him being on there. That makes sense to me. But Peppers, he was a good player for us, but he took way too many plays off, and that just doesn't sit well with me.
I think we feel spurned by Andrew Luck. Let's talk about Julius Peppers.
I don't feel that at all. I don't feel it at all. I love Julius Peppers still.
He didn't play. He never lived up to his full potential, in my opinion. He could have been great.
We offered the highest paid salary of a defensive player ever, and he left. So,
I love Peppers. He played high school like 30 minutes from here. But
that's true.
I would say I would just to kind of ruin this in some ways is that I was asked this question on a radio show about a month ago, right? And
that's right. Yeah.
The only issue I have with it is all of those players are active still with that list
on there, I believe.
Okay, so we came up with, I think, what did I say? Minter, Muhammad,
Mike Minter, Muhammad,
Mills,
you said Casey,
and Mills.
Casey and Mills, yeah.
John Casey. So we have a kicker. In fact, we could ask you that, Rick, do you have, if you were going to give us your Mount Rushmore of Indianapolis Colts, I know you would have Peyton Manning up there. Yeah. Would you have a kicker up there?
Will we have a kicker? No.
Would you have a kicker on your Mount Rushmore?
No.
Should we be embarrassed that we have a kicker on our Mount Rushmore?
Even though Adam Vinatieri has been a pretty solid kicker for us, he's not going to go on my Mount Rushmore for the Colts, no.
What about what was his name, Joey?
Vandershank?
Vandergraaf. Yeah.
Oh, he was awesome for a long time.
Until it mattered.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. You're right.
Okay, well, I guess why don't we go ahead and put our plugs in. Rick, tell us what you do, where people can find you, because we'll have a lot of people following up on this and reading what you guys report about it in the future.
Well, for all of you at Panthers Nation, I do hope you guys get a chance to stop by drafttech.com and see what we have there available throughout the year. It's a great effort by Warren Hawk and all the guys there at drafttech.com. We enjoy doing it, and certainly enjoy any feedback and input that comes our way as well. And I also like to thank you guys for having me here. It's been fun. It's a great show. Enjoyed it, and I thought there was a lot of interesting and good points. And I don't really think you're silly. I understand where you're coming from as far as Cam versus Andrew. But I do wish the best for you guys, except when you play Drew Brees and the Saints. I'm sorry.
Well, you just went from giving us a nice compliment to saying the worst possible thing you could have said on this show.
Give it, and he takes it away, doesn't he?
I think it's important to add, because we didn't really get any time to talk before the show, is that kind of just about what CarolinaCatChronicles.com does, and we certainly never try to be reporters. What we are is trying to capture the fan voice, so that's why we kind of enjoy these moments more than, I guess, and take them to the level of where most people are like, I can't believe you're really saying that, because that's what we talk about in this part of the off season. We're all trying to come up with something. So thank you, except for the Drew Brees.
And the Saints.
I'm sorry, the Purdue came.
In fact, I know, I'm sitting there looking at those dang colors back there, and it's just like Saint colors almost. But he did go to Purdue, Drew Brees, so I can see why you like him. I like him, except for he plays with the Saints, so I have to hate him. Jake, tell our fans where they can get at you.
Well, I'm with a couple websites. First, you guys may be, I know you guys with C Cubed are familiar with ProFootballSpot.com. We're a website that encompasses all 32 teams. We cover all of them. I'm the Indianapolis Colts lead writer. Got a very good team with me of Colts writers. I am also the Colts Beat Writer for IndySportsReport.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Jake Arthur ISR.
Mel, jump in there.
Well, hey, I'm Aaron Ford, a.k.a. Mel Mayock, and you can follow me on Twitter at Panther. I, like Rick, am a analyst over at DraftTech.com, writing for the Panthers. We got our first mock draft coming out this week, so check it out. Go to DraftTech.com, see where the Panthers are projected to pick and who we're projected to take. I think you're going to like it.
Joe, go ahead.
All right, I'm Joey Riolano, a.k.a. the Freaking Puerto Rican. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Riolano. Always tweeting something about the Panthers or something I find humorous, and all tweets are my own and not necessarily associated with CarolinaCatChronicles.com.
All right. Well, my name's Anthony Dunn, Touchdown Tony Dunn, a.k.a. the Professor. Thanks for joining the C3 podcast, CarolinaCatChronicles.com. But before we part, I just want to put out a couple of just kind of plugs for some things that we're doing. We're about to unveil the C3 Fantasy Football Challenge, where Panther fans can come together. We are going to have an interesting contest where 48 teams are going to play. There's going to be 4 divisions of 12 teams, so there's going to be 4 independent leagues. Then they're going to go into a super bracket at the end, and that's the prize pool. 3 teams from each league advance and make the prize pool. We're going to have a Kelvin Benjamin jersey. There's going to be some money involved. There will be weekly prizes. So you guys are going to have to check out CarolinaCatChronicles.com for the C3 Fantasy Football Challenge, and that is going to be in partnership with the Fan Zone in Charleston. So we also need to plug another contest coming up, Joey. What do you think? What would you like to tell them that's in the works?
Well, we have coming up for your pleasure. We're giving away tickets to the Detroit Lions game, Carolina versus Detroit in the regular season home opener, as well as a dinner for two at Firebird's Restaurant in what we're calling the Carolina Cat Chronicles Fan Spotlight. We're looking for the most excited, biggest, most outrageous Carolina Panthers fan that is out there. Send us a video, send us a picture telling us why you are the #1 Carolina Panthers fan.
And you want to see our defense stomp on some Megatron. That's going to be tough. So everybody, check out the C3 podcast. You can get it on the website, CarolinaCatChronicles.com. You need to follow us on Twitter. That's where it's at @cat_chronicles. And like our Facebook page, Facebook.com/Carolina Cat Chronicles. And I want to thank everybody for being involved with the show. And you guys have a great night.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Hey.
Can I win that contest, Tony?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It was awesome.